My name's Hunter Hoffler, and I've been fly fishing since I was 6 years old. Last year, I won gold at the USA Youth Nationals. This year, I'm on a mission to train with the best anglers in the world.
I'd say the most difficult thing is doing things 2 times in a row, and Hunter has a real good shot at becoming the 2-time national fly fishing champion.
In fly fishing, you can never stop learning. This is In the Loop. So the America Cup is actually the biggest competition in North America. It's held annually in Vail, Colorado. And as a youth team member, the team and myself really look forward to this competition. It's one of 2 competitions that we really focus hard on and train for and study up on during the year. Those 2 competitions are the World Championships and the America Cup. And the America Cup is actually a great learning experience because you get to fish with a lot of these guys that come over from Europe. And you have a lot of former world champions and a lot of very respected people from Europe, as well as some of the best people from the United States, kind of fishing with each other and sharing ideas and techniques throughout the whole competition. So not only is it a great competition, it's really a great learning experience as well. In addition to the America Cup in Vail being such a big competition, it's also really good training for myself and others that are going to be competing in the 2015 Youth World Championships, which are going to be held in Vail. So it's actually going to be held on a lot of the same venues. So we like going out there and competing in this competition to get more and more familiar with these waters so that when the time comes to compete for the Worlds, we feel really confident. The America Cup is structured like a lot of our bigger competitions like the Nationals and the Worlds, where it's a 3-day competition, 2 sessions on Friday, 2 sessions on Saturday, and 1 session on Sunday. So it's a total of 5 different venues and 5 different sessions that you fish. They took out the Colorado River after it had blown out and got really muddy and put in Black Lake. As a team, we kind of didn't like that, to be honest, because it threw us a curveball. We had spent months planning and studying up on all these venues, and then a couple days before we have a new venue like that, and we have to kind of go in and do our homework on this venue and try to figure out what is going to work. And so from a competitor standpoint, you want kind of stability in your venues, but that doesn't always happen. That's not to say that everybody would have blanked the Colorado. They could have, and so for the competition's sake, it's better that they put in this little lake, this Black Lake, but from a personal and team standpoint, it's better to have something that you really studied up on. So we had spent several days pre-fishing, and everybody felt pretty confident with the water. And every year, the America Cup and Nova Guides co-host a Project Healing Waters event where we get a bunch of injured veterans from, or even just retired veterans from around the country that want to come and fish and learn how to fly fish, or even if they know, just go fish with some of the competitive guys. They get them kind of round a bunch of people up that volunteer for it, and we go and do it. So everybody on our team was obviously very happy to go do this, and since we felt like we were comfortable with the competition, it ended up being a really great event. I met some really cool guys and actually have stayed in touch with a bunch of these guys that I met through this event. So it was a really great experience. I'm glad I did it. So the way that the Project Healing Waters event is structured, the first half we go onto the Eagle River and everybody fishes, and a lot of these guys want to learn the nymphing technique that we use. And so we were teaching that. The guy I was with was actually a great angler and a really good guy, and so I ended up showing him a lot of this Euro nymphing stuff. He was actually had tried it and used it before, but I was showing him some of the more advanced parts of what we do. And the second part of the day, we go back to Nova Guides Lodge, and they have a lake there that they stock full of fish. It has a bunch of these great rainbows in it, and we get to fish over there and help these guys out with that. So it was really a great time, and it's structured really well, and everybody ended up catching a lot of great fish. So just all around good event for both myself and I assume the veterans that we were fishing with, they seemed like they were all having a really great time. Doing this the day before the competition is just a really great way for myself and the team to get our mind off the competition and kind of relax, and also to give back to these guys who have done so much for us in our country. So we were all really happy and excited to do it, had a great time, and met some really cool folks. The first session I had was on the Blue River, and the Blue River has been one of my favorite venues that I've ever fished for a while, because it changes a lot. I mean, the water level, even throughout this competition, changed, I think, over 500 CFS, which, you know, the river dropped almost 2 feet during the competition. But luckily I had it on the first session.
Well, it's the first session on the Blue. I think I got a pretty good beat draw. Years past, I've had actually pretty bad beats on this river, so I'm pretty excited about that. The game plan's kind of to fish a little nymphs and streamers. The water's up just a little bit, so I don't think they'll really be on the dry bite. So we've had luck in the past pulling streamers, so I'm probably gonna do that maybe in the last 30 minutes or so of my session to try to get some of those kicker fish, you know, to give me a good placing.
I got out and fished for about 15 or 20 minutes and watched people below me catching fish, and I just wasn't doing anything. And so I figured I had to make a change. And at the top of my beat, there was this big, long, pretty run that I hadn't got to yet. And I figured if I was gonna be efficient and try to catch as many fish as I could, I have to get to that quickly. So I kind of passed up a lot of this pocket water and got up to this big run. And once I got into that, I figured out the fish's depth and started catching fish nearly, you know, every 5 minutes or so I was hooked into a fish. So one of the toughest things about a river venue is that your judge isn't always standing or sitting right next to you like they are in the boat on a lock session. So every time I caught a fish, I'd have to run back down to the bottom of my beat and cross some pretty heavy, deep water to the other side. And you know, that's one of the hardest things with competitive fishing on a river, is just it's actually, you know, a lot more physical than people think. You know, when you imagine fly fishing, you kind of think of this graceful sport and you're not, you know, moving a lot. But in this situation, at the end of the session, you are worn out because, you know, you're having to travel so far, and you know, when you're doing that in the water and when it's deep, fast water, it's really tough, especially in later sessions, to keep determined like that.
I kind of located a pretty large pot of fish and didn't really get back around to him till towards the end of the session. So it ends up that I really didn't streamer fish that much. I think it was a good decision, but I got a lot of fish nymphing really deep and ended up catching 16, which I think should be pretty good.
You know, it seemed like every time I got to a new area that I felt confident there'd be a fish, you know, 2 or 3 casts in, I would hook up, and ended up getting just some toads out of there. And it was one of my favorite, you know, most memorable sessions that I can remember. So my next session was also on the Blue. I was on the lower Blue my first session. I moved to the upper Blue, and it turns out that I had the uppermost beat on the lower Blue and the lowermost beat on the upper Blue. So my beats were actually right next to each other. My second beat was just the water that's right above my first beat.
I'm on my second session on the Blue. I won the first one, I think, which is awesome. And I'm on the one actually ends up right above the one I just fished, so I got to see where the guy caught his fish, which is good, but he only caught 3. So I think it's gonna kind of be a tough beat, so I'm just kind of hoping to get a good finish out of it. Not really expecting to win or anything, but if I can get a solid finish, I'll be really happy.
I knew that it was gonna be a really tough beat. It was pretty shallow the whole way across, and the part that was deep was really, really fast water. So I ended up catching, I think, 4 fish out of it, which got me a 6th place, which I was pretty happy with, honestly. I'd hooked a few more, including one of the biggest fish that I've ever hooked on a dry fly. It was close to a 25-inch rainbow. It was very, very large, but I felt good with 4 fish. The guy before me had 3, So I felt good that, the session afterwards I'd beat out the person that fished before me. So I held on, and I feel pretty good about where I'm sitting right now in the standings.
Just finished our second session on the blue. I had a really tough beat, so I decided, I worked it really hard. I decided to try some streamers and some heavier nymphs, and it was just really kind of featureless, heavy riffle water that normally fish wouldn't sit in, but I ended up getting a couple of them. The streamer still didn't work out this session, but I got 4, and my goal was to get 2 or 3 out of here, so I'm really happy with that.
The morning of day 2, this lake had put up 3 fish total with, I think it's 28 anglers going through it the day before. 3 total fish had been caught out of it. People were already starting to call it Blank Lake because just about everybody that went there was blanking. And so I'm going into this session, knowing that if I can catch a fish here, that'll basically ensure me a good finish, because there's going to be a lot of blanks in this competition. And so I'm really nervous and excited to fish this lake. I know if I hook up on a fish, I've got to make it count and land him.
We're at Black Lake today. It's the 3rd session of the America's Cup. Team USA Youth is winning right now, and all of our guys are doing pretty good. And yesterday we won both of the sessions on this lake, but both of our guys only caught 1 fish. And the session yesterday evening only put up 2 fish throughout the whole group. So I think this is going to be one of those sessions that I just need to try to not blank. And if I can do that, we'll probably be very well off.
So the way that this lake was set up, it wasn't a lock style venue, it was actually a bank fishing venue. So this lake had several beats on it like a river would, and every hour we would switch. So that was a total of 3 pegs for a 3-hour session. So you kind of had a couple beats on this lake that were actually putting up fish. There was one beat that was towards the mouth of the creek, and then one on this big point, and one that was kind of on the steep bank in the woods. But regardless, you would generally only get one of these beats per session. So you had to really make it count. It's one of those things where, even in a river on this lake, you get beat draws, and you kind of have to take advantage of what you get and try to survive or do something with a bad beat. So. After I didn't catch anything on my first peg in Black Lake, my heart kind of sank. I just had a feeling that I was not going to catch anything else, because that was really my shot, my best opportunity, and my other beats were actually in places that were really hard to fish. So turns out that I didn't catch anything in this session, but kind of live to fight another day and try to make it up in some other sessions.
So we just finished up our session on Black Lake. I ended up blanking, which is not good, but it's a good thing about team sports. Hopefully my teammates picked up where I dropped off, where I didn't do well. So anyway, I guess I'll call around and see how they did. Hopefully I do better my second session.
So after I fished Black Lake and I blanked, I was really hoping that the rest of the team picked up my slack, because as much as I want to do well individually, I really want to see my team do well. So turns out everybody else had a very good session, which made me feel a lot better about my finish. And now we're going to Sylvan Lake, and I fished Sylvan Lake before. It's arguably one of the best lakes that I've ever fished, I think. Anywhere you want to go, there's going to be fish there. So I had a set game plan that everybody sees these rising fish on the edges of the lake on these weed beds, and people kind of get sucked into it. And I was kind of thinking, there's plenty of fish out in the middle, because I've caught fish out in the middle before. I'm going to go out towards the middle of the lake and use a deep line and kind of get away from everybody. And it turns out that was a really great game plan for me, because I had got up to about 10 or 12 fish in the first hour, and everybody else was really struggling pretty hard. So just goes to show you how, kind of getting away from the group and going the other direction, doing your own thing, pays off a lot of times, especially on a lake. So in a lock style session, it's really important. Unlike a river, it's you versus the fish. In a boat, in a lock session, it's you and your partner versus the fish, because you're fishing essentially the same water at the same time. So it's really, I've found, it's important to work with your boat partner, because if you get on the boat and say, here's my fly boxes, here's my lines, you're welcome to all this stuff, but I want us to work together. Sometimes you'll find that your boat partner gets into fish before you and he figures it out, and he'll be a lot happier to tell you what he's doing if he knows that you guys are going to work together. So being really secretive, you know, it might pay off if you're the one who gets into fish, but you're going to wish that you had been nicer to this guy if he gets into fish and he's not going to tell you what he's doing. That's what I did in the America Cup in my boat sessions, and we both benefited from each other mutually, so it worked out very well.
We just finished our session on Sylvan Lake. It's been putting up some pretty good numbers. I got 24 on it, and I think I won my session, which is really good. Had to change my depth a little bit and move around, but got some good fish. My boat partner also got 20, so we did really good as a whole. So we worked together. Really good venue for sure. It's awesome.
So on Sunday, the last session of the competition, I was going to Dillon Reservoir, and the team was sitting in second place, which honestly I don't mind too much personally, because when you're sitting in first place, there's a target on your back, and everybody's, you know, that's in the boat with you is trying to kind of mess with you, and you know, they're trying to get their team to the top and want to knock yours off. So sitting in second's a good team to kind of strike from behind, and we all knew that if we just simply beat everybody from the team that was in first place in all of our sessions, we would win. So I'd say the last session, the fifth session, was the one that we all fished the hardest on, and we knew that it mattered for us to win the America Cup. So a lot of people don't see fly fishing as a team sport, but in competitions, it's the biggest aspect of you doing well. We try to have what we call a team medal mentality, where we're sharing every little bit of information, everything we did wrong, everything we're doing right in our sessions with our team members. And it brings everybody really close together. I can say everybody on the youth team are my best friends. And also, you know, when you do this and you share information, it's only going to make you better. And so with the team medal mentality, you know, individual medals come with that. You know, when you're sharing and with people in your group, in your team, and they're sharing information with you, you have this whole wealth bank of information on any given venue that you can pull out at any time. You can say, you know, hey, you know, this guy on my team did this here, what I'm doing is not working, I'm gonna try this out, and a lot of times that'll win you sessions and ultimately win you medals.
We're at Dillon Lake, and it's pretty good conditions. Everybody's getting rigged up right now, but it's the last session, and hopefully we can do well. Our team's in second right now, so hopefully if I get a good finish and everybody else does pretty good, we might be able to jump up to first.
Reservoir, we have had two very small lakes. The Sylvan is a little bit bigger than Black Lake, but they're both fairly small. And it's total different change of pace and a different kind of skill set that you have to know. There's strategic things that you can try to do. Jan and Devin, for example, rowed about 40 minutes to the other side of the lake, and you know, they thought that this would pay off, that they'd get into a lot more fish. Although obviously they're not going to have as much time to fish because you're spending, you know, about an hour and hour and 30 minutes rowing. So it turns out that me and Randy Hanner decided we're going to stay where we know fish are and try to kind of use some different tactics to get into them. And we ended up placing a lot better than Devin and Jan. Again, we got first and second in that session. Randy just killed it. He figured it out earlier. And he actually had some flies that he was using that I didn't have a lot of, you're kind of preached in lake fishing not to use tungsten flies because you want to try to keep very good contact with your flies. You want to use basically weightless. But he was using tungsten flies, and what it was doing was allowing his flies to dart up and down as he was stripping. And I think that had a lot to do with how many fish he caught. He ended up catching 19 fish. Previously, every session was won with 6 or 7, and I ended up with 7 fish. So he beat me pretty good, but we still ended up getting first and second place, and that was important for us finishing well in this competition.
We just finished our last session on Dillon Reservoir. I was in the boat with Randy here, and he got 19 and I got 7, so he just killed it. But I think actually we got the first and second place spot, so that's good finish for sure. I was hoping for a top 3, so that's great.
The rest of the day after this Dillon session, texts started trickling in from everybody on the team, how they placed, and we were looking increasingly better and better and better. And not only were we betting on ourselves having good sessions, we were hoping that the team that was above us had a few poor sessions, which as they started coming in, we started realizing like, hey, we might have a shot to actually win this thing. And when I finally figured out that we had won, I sat down on the couch and did the math a couple times, and I figured it out. There's no way that we're going to lose this thing. Everybody kind of erupted in a big old party after that. Everybody was really excited because this is our big competition of the year. We had spent months practicing for this, and for everything to come to fruition and all the hard work we had done to pay off was just really exciting for everybody.